For 3 long years, a strange signal had been echoing through the stars. It came every night, a soft, trembling sound from deep space. Scientists called it the whisper, but they soon grew tired of it. They said it was nothing, maybe a broken satellite or space noise. After a few months, the world stopped caring. The universe went silent again, or so everyone thought. But far away, beyond the glowing rings of Jupiter, an alien mother kept sending her message. She had lost everything except hope. Her voice carried pain, fear, and love for her child who was dying inside a broken ship. She sent the same cry every night, waiting for someone to hear. For 3 years, no one answered until one lonely human did. Evan lived on the edge of a small desert town. He was not famous, not a scientist, just a quiet radio engineer who worked alone. Every night he sat in his dusty old workshop, surrounded by wires, broken antennas, and blinking lights. He loved listening to space. He said space spoke to him in ways people never could. One night, as the wind howled outside and his old radio machine buzzed with static, Evan heard something. It was faint, almost lost in the noise, but it had rhythm, a slow pattern, like a heartbeat. He turned the dials carefully. His fingers trembling, the sound grew clearer. Then came a voice, soft, weak, but full of emotion. "My child, please, someone help." Evan froze. His eyes widened as the sound repeated. He played it again and again. It wasn't human. The tone, the pitch, everything was different. But the fear and love in that voice were unmistakable. It was the sound of a mother, not from Earth, but from somewhere far beyond. He didn't sleep that night. He cleaned the audio, slowed it down, and compared the frequencies. It wasn't a recording error or an echo. It was real. Someone, something, was calling for help. And no one else was listening. The next morning, Evan went to the local science center. He told them about the signal. They laughed. "Another space dreamer," one of them said. "You probably picked up radio static or a distant broadcast." But Evan knew what he heard. He had worked with signals all his life. He could tell the difference between a pattern and random noise. And this was a message. He went back to his workshop. Feeling angry and alone, for hours he stared at the radio. The voice played in his mind again and again, that desperate whisper. Finally, he said to himself, "If no one believes me, I'll answer it myself." He rebuilt his transmitter. It was old and rusty, but it worked. He adjusted the frequency, matched the wave pattern, and recorded a simple reply. "Who are you?" he said softly into the microphone. His voice shook, but he pressed the button and sent it into the stars. Days passed, nothing happened. Evan began to doubt himself. Maybe it was just noise, maybe he was going crazy. But then one cold night his computer started beeping. A new signal was coming through, stronger than before. He ran to the screen. His heart pounding, the voice returned, this time clearer. "You heard me." It said, filled with relief and tears. Evan gasped. The voice continued. "My name is Lyra. My child is dying. We are near your planet. Please, human, help us." Her voice broke as she spoke, the sound trembling like broken glass. Evan's eyes filled with tears. He didn't know how, but he felt her pain deep in his chest. He could almost see her, alone in the dark. Holding her child, waiting for hope, he replied, "I hear you, Lyra. I will help you." He didn't know what he was promising. He had no spaceship, no team, no power, just a radio and a heart that refused to ignore a mother's cry. That night, Evan sat beside his machine, listening to her voice echo across the stars. Outside, the desert was silent, the stars cold and bright, but in that small room, something powerful had awakened. A connection between two worlds. One human, one alien, both bound by love and loss, and as the signal faded into the night sky, Evan whispered to himself, "If no one else will listen, then I will." He didn't know it yet. But this simple act, one man answering a call from the stars, was about to change the fate of both species forever. The night was colder than usual. Evan sat beside his old radio, eyes red from sleeplessness. For 3 days he had waited. Every few hours, he replayed the alien message, that trembling voice of a mother lost among the stars. He had promised to help her, even though he had no idea how. The transmitter's lights flickered softly in the dark. It was an ancient machine, patched with wires and silver tape. Yet it was his window to the universe. He leaned closer, staring at the green screen as if it would suddenly reveal a miracle. The desert outside was silent, only the wind whispering across the sand. Then at 2:43 a.m. a soft beep echoed through the room. Evan jumped, his heart racing. The receiver came alive, a signal. Strong and pulsing, he turned the dials fast, matching the frequency, and then he heard it. "You heard me." His breath caught in his throat. The voice was clearer now, gentle but filled with exhaustion. He pressed the microphone and whispered, "Lyra. Is that you?" There was a pause. Then the voice replied, shaking with relief. "Yes. Human, I am Lyra." Evan closed his eyes, his hands trembling. He couldn't believe it. He was talking to someone, something not from Earth. Her voice carried pain and hope, as if every word was a struggle to stay alive. "My ship, broken. My child is dying," she said. "We are trapped near your planet's giant. We cannot move. Please, human, help us." Evan opened his mouth, but no words came out. He didn't know what to say. How could he help someone stranded near Jupiter, millions of kilometers away? He swallowed hard, his throat dry. "I'll try," he finally said. "Tell me, where exactly are you?" Lyra's voice cracked. "Orbiting near Red Storm. Low power. No one from my world answers. Only silence." She stopped for a moment, and Evan heard a faint crying sound, not from her but from someone else. A smaller voice, weak, almost fading. Her child. Evan felt a chill down his spine. It wasn't just a signal anymore. It was a lifeline. He ran to his old computer, pulling up the space mapping software. He entered the coordinates she had managed to send. A point appeared on the screen, near Jupiter's lower orbit, right inside the shadow of its great storm. He leaned back, whispering, "Oh my God, she's really there." He needed to tell someone. He recorded the signal, saved the data, and ran to the local observatory. The night guard looked at him with half-closed eyes. "Not you again," the man said. Evan showed him the recording, the alien's trembling voice, but the guard laughed. "Nice trick. Sounds like one of those space prank channels." Evan's stomach twisted. No one would believe him, not again. He returned home with heavy steps. He sat in front of his transmitter and stared at the blinking lights. He whispered, "You're not alone, Lyra. I'll find a way." The radio crackled softly. Lyra replied, her tone gentle and sad. "Humans stopped answering long ago. I thought you forgot us." Evan's eyes filled with tears. "No," he said, "not all humans forget." He began researching. He found old space maps, ship tracking systems, and weather routes for cargo missions to Jupiter's orbit. Maybe, he thought, one of them could reach her. But none of them were scheduled for months. Time was running out. Her child might not survive that long. Days turned into nights. Evan worked without rest. He upgraded his transmitter to send stronger signals. Sometimes Lyra replied weakly. Sometimes there was only silence, but each time she spoke, Evan felt a strange connection, as if their hearts were linked by sound and sorrow. One night she said softly, "Human, what is your name?" He smiled faintly. Evan, she repeated, her alien tongue stretching the word. "You have kindness. Your world does not deserve you." He laughed quietly, shaking his head. "Maybe I don't deserve your trust," he said. But deep inside, he had already made his choice. He would not just talk. He would go. He began fixing an old shuttle signal relay left from a decommissioned observatory program. If he could boost her beacon using its code, someone at the space agency would have to notice. It was risky, even illegal, but he didn't care. He couldn't let that mother's cry fade into silence. Out again, at dawn, he sent a final message to her. "Lyra, hold on. I'm coming." There was a pause, then her weak reply. "Thank you, Evan. I will keep calling until you arrive." As the first light of morning touched the desert, Evan stood outside his shack. He looked up at the sky where Jupiter shone like a golden eye. He whispered, 3 years you called and no one answered. But I hear you now." He didn't know that somewhere out there in the cold emptiness of space, Lyra smiled through tears, holding her child close, whispering the same words back, "You heard me. Human, you heard me." For days, Evan barely slept. He sat before his radio, watching the signal grow weaker each night. Lyra's voice was fading, her strength slipping away, and every time she spoke, it sounded like she was whispering from the edge of death. He knew time was running out if he didn't act soon. Both she and her child would be gone forever. He tried again to reach the space agency. He sent them recordings, coordinates, and data, but they dismissed him once more. "Unverified transmission," they said. "Not worth investigation." No one wanted to believe a lone engineer who claimed he was talking to an alien mother. So Evan made his decision. He would go himself. He spent every coin he had. He bought an old cargo ticket to Jupiter's orbit. It was a mining vessel named Horizon Drift, slow but sturdy. The crew didn't ask questions. They just needed workers to monitor cargo systems. Evan signed up quietly, keeping his mission a secret. He packed his transmitter, his laptop, and a small photo of Earth before leaving. He sent one last message to Lyra. "I'm coming. Just hold on." Her reply was faint, almost broken. "I will wait." "Evan, please hurry." The journey took weeks. The vast darkness of space stretched endlessly before him. Evan would spend nights in the cargo bay, staring through the observation window. Jupiter grew larger every day, a massive world swirling with storms and glowing lightning. He felt both fear and awe. He was a simple man on a mission meant for heroes, but maybe, he thought, that's what being human really meant as they neared Jupiter. Evan used his hidden equipment to trace Lyra's signal. It was faint but steady. He adjusted his receiver until a small green dot blinked on the screen. There she was, her ship orbiting low near the edge of the Great Red Storm, a dead craft in the shadow of a giant planet. The reading showed no energy. No movement, no life signs, but Evan knew better. She was still there, waiting. The cargo captain noticed Evan spending long hours by the window. "You're not one of us, are you?" The captain asked. Evan froze, then gave a small smile. "Just a man chasing a signal," he said quietly. The captain frowned. "Signals get people killed out here," Evan nodded. "Then I'll die listening." On the 7th day, while the crew rested, Evan took his chance. He sneaked into one of the small shuttle pods. He connected his transmitter and started triangulating the alien ship's position. The pod detached silently, drifting away from the horizon drift. No one noticed he was alone now, floating toward the dead zone near Jupiter. The closer he got, the colder it became. Static filled his radio, and faint flashes of lightning from the planet's surface lit his face. Then his receiver beeped, and one slow pulse. She was close, through the pod window. He finally saw it, a small silver ship, twisted and broken. Hanging motionless in the storm's shadow, its hull was cracked, the edges glowing faintly with alien metal. No lights, no movement, just silence. "Lyra," he whispered into the radio. "I found your ship." For a moment, there was only static. Then weakly, her voice came through. "Evan, you came?" He felt his throat tighten. "Yes," he said softly. "I promised, didn't I?" He maneuvered the pod closer. Magnetic clamps attached with a soft thud. He put on his suit, heart pounding in his chest. Opening the pod door, he floated into the alien craft. The air inside was cold and heavy, his flashlight cutting through the dark. He saw strange symbols along the walls. Glowing dim like fading stars, the corridors were quiet, except for a soft hum and a dying heartbeat of the ship. Then in a small chamber he found her. Lyra was sitting against the wall, her silver skin pale and cracked. In her arms lay a small child, wrapped in metallic cloth, barely moving. Her eyes opened weakly as Evan stepped closer. You're human," she whispered. Evan knelt beside her, his voice trembling. "I heard your call," he said. "I came to help." Tears floated from her eyes, shimmering like light in the weightless air. "I thought no one would come," she said softly. Her hand touched his suit, her fingers thin and cold. "Your world turned away. But you answered." Evan swallowed hard. "We'll save your child," he said. "I'll fix your air filters. I'll get help." He opened his toolkit, connecting wires, rerouting oxygen lines. Small lights flickered on again. Weak but alive, the child coughed, a small, trembling sound, and Evan smiled. But the moment of hope didn't last. The ship groaned, alarms flashing red. Lyra's eyes widened. "The core is failing," she said weakly. "The ship is dying." Evan looked around in panic. He couldn't leave them now, not after coming this far. He pressed his communicator, trying to reach the cargo ship. But the storm blocked all signals. He was trapped with them. "Hold on," he said, gripping her hand. "I'll find a way." Lyra looked at him, her voice trembling. "You are brave. For one human." The ship shuddered again, metal tearing in the distance. And Evan knew the real battle had just begun outside. Jupiter's red storm swirled like an endless eye, and inside that dying ship, One human and one alien mother faced the storm together, both holding on to the smallest spark of hope left in the universe. The air inside the alien ship was growing thin. Evan could feel it through his helmet, the way every breath felt heavier, slower, weaker. Lights flickered above him. Sparks drifted in the air like falling stars. He looked around the strange chamber, walls covered in glowing symbols that pulsed like fading veins. The ship was alive once, while now it was dying. Lyra sat against the wall, holding her small child close. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver under his flashlight. But now that glow was dim, fading with every minute. She looked fragile, her breathing shallow, her arms trembling as she tried to comfort the little one. The child let out a soft sound like a weak hum that broke Evan's heart. He knelt beside her. "You need help," he said softly. "I can fix your oxygen system. I can call for rescue." Lyra looked at him with eyes that glowed faintly blue. "You came so far, human," she whispered. "Why?" Evan swallowed hard. "Because no one else would," he said. "And because no mother should die calling for help." She stared at him for a long moment. Her gaze wasn't just looking at his face, and it felt like she was seeing his soul. Then she smiled weakly. "You have a heart, bright as stars," she whispered. "My people forgot hearts long ago." Evan tried to focus on the ship. He followed the cables along the wall, reconnecting wires with shaky hands. He found the oxygen generator, a glowing blue core inside a cracked casing. It was leaking gas into space, losing pressure fast. He used sealant foam and spare metal panels to repair it. The machine hissed, then hummed. Fresh air began to flow again. Lyra took a slow breath, and her shoulders eased. "Better," she murmured. Evan smiled, relief washing over him. But the child, the little alien, was still not moving much. Its chest rose weakly, its skin dull and grayish. Evan looked around and saw strange pods built into the wall. "Maybe medical units," he pointed. "Are these for healing?" Lyra nodded faintly, but no power. Too weak now. Evan's mind raced. He pulled open his suit battery pack, connecting his power cable to the pod. Sparks jumped, lights flickered. And then, a soft hum returned. The pod glowed, warmth spreading through the small chamber. He gently lifted the child, placing it inside. The machine closed with a soft sigh. Lyra's hands trembled as she watched, tears floating up in the air. "You are saving my heart," she whispered. For a moment, everything felt calm. The ship seemed to breathe again, its lights slowly pulsing with rhythm. Evan looked at Lyra, really seeing her now, her alien beauty, her gentle but weary eyes. Even across species, her love was something he understood completely, a mother fighting the universe for her child. But peace never lasts long in space. The ship's metal groaned again, a deep rumble shaking the floor. Warning lights flashed red. Lyra looked up suddenly, her expression full of fear. "The reactor. It's failing," she gasped. Evan turned toward the control panel, lines of alien symbols flashing violently. He couldn't read them, but he understood one thing. "Meltdown. Can we stop it?" he shouted. Lyra shook her head slowly. "It is too late. The ship's heart is broken. If I leave, the core will collapse faster." Evan clenched his fists. "There has to be a way." He ran toward the console, pressing buttons, pulling levers, but nothing worked. The lights flickered again, cracks forming along the walls. Pieces of debris floated through the air. Lyra reached out a trembling hand. "Evan." "Listen," she said softly. "Take my child. Promise me you will save it." He turned to her, eyes wide. "No," he said firmly. "I'm not leaving you here." She smiled sadly. Your people, they will care for the child better than a dying mother." Evan shook his head, anger burning in his chest. "I didn't come across the stars to watch you die." But Lyra's strength was fading fast, her voice softened. "Human. You are brave. And foolish. Both beautiful things." The ship shook again, an alarm screamed through the corridor. Evan grabbed her shoulders. "We'll get out together, do you hear me?" He tried sending another distress beacon through his transmitter, but static drowned every signal. They were trapped inside a dying metal coffin above the storms of Jupiter. He could see her struggling to keep her eyes open. She pressed her hand to the glass of the healing pod where her child lay. Blue light shimmered on her skin. "My child's name is Eliara," she whispered. Tell her I loved her until the stars dimmed." Her voice cracked. Evan felt a tear roll down his face, floating into the air. I'll tell her, he said, voice breaking. I swear it, for a moment. Their eyes met, human and alien, and in that silent moment, there was no difference between their worlds, only love and loss. Then suddenly the ship jolted violently, the walls splitting open with a blinding flash. Evan grabbed Lyra, shielding her as fire erupted around them. The sound of the storm outside roared like thunder. He could feel the ship collapsing, breaking apart piece by piece. Lyra touched his helmet one last time. Go, she whispered. Save my child, Evan's breath caught. His heart torn between duty and compassion. I'll come back for you, he said. Her voice faded with a final smile. I know, human. You always keep your promises. And as the ship's light dimmed to black, Evan realized the true meaning of her name. Lyra, in her language, meant hope. And in that dying ship, above a storm that could swallow worlds, hope still lived, glowing softly inside the pod of a sleeping alien child. The ship screamed around him, metal groaned like a dying beast, sparks bursting from broken panels. Evan's suit alarms blared, oxygen falling, temperature rising. Smoke and flashing lights filled the corridor, turning everything into a blur of red and silver. He could barely hear his own breath, only the thunder of Jupiter's storm outside the hull. Lyra was weak, her silver skin cracked, glowing faintly like starlight behind mist. She was still sitting beside the healing pod where her child rested, her eyes half closed but filled with peace. The child inside the pod glowed softly, small chest rising and falling, alive but fragile. Evan knew there wasn't much time. Lyra, we have to move, he said, pulling on her arm. The core's going to blow any minute. She looked at him, her lips trembling. If we go, the pod will not survive the vacuum, she whispered. If we stay, none of us will, Evan answered firmly. Lyra smiled faintly. Then the choice is yours, human. He froze. What did she mean? His choice. But in her fading eyes he saw the truth. She already knew she wouldn't survive. All that mattered to her now was her child. Her child, Eliara, the one she had called to the stars for 3 long years. Evan's chest ached, he looked between them. The dying mother, the small alien baby and the shaking walls around them. Smoke poured from a broken pipe above, filling the air with heat and ash. Don't make me choose, he whispered, voice breaking. Lyra's eyes softened. You already have, she said gently. He wanted to save them both. He wanted to be the hero from old space legends, the one who saves everyone. But heroes didn't exist in this world, only people who made impossible choices. The reactor's warning lights flashed faster. Red turning to blinding white, Evan ran to the nearest panel. Trying to override the meltdown sequence, his fingers flew over alien symbols, but nothing worked. The reactor's hum grew louder, deeper, like a monster waking up. Lyra struggled to stand, leaning against the wall. Take her, she said, pointing to the pod. Carry her to your ship, she will live. Evan shook his head. Tears floating in the air. You come too. I'll carry you both. She reached out and touched his hand. Her touch soft and warm even through the suit. No, I will not make it through your atmosphere. My body is too weak. Her words were calm, like she had already accepted her fate. Evan looked at the pod, small, lightweight, designed for escape. If he launched it now, it might reach the mining ship still orbiting above. He could save the child, but if he waited any longer, the explosion would consume everything. He felt the world tilt around him, time slowing, his breath loud in his ears, every beat of his heart echoed like thunder. He had to choose Lyra, he said finally, voice trembling. I promise you your child will live. She smiled weakly, tears of light floating around her. You are human, she whispered, and yet you remind me of the stars. He pressed the emergency seal on the pod. Locking it, the child slept peacefully inside. Unaware of the chaos outside, Evan carried it to the airlock, his arms shaking from the effort. Lyra followed slowly, every step a struggle. Her breath shallow. She stopped at the edge of the airlock door. This is where I stop, she said softly. Evan turned, panic in his eyes. No, please. She placed her glowing hand on his helmet. Do not grieve for me, human. You answered when no one else did. The reactor roared like thunder, the floor splitting beneath them. Evan's suit alarm screamed. 5 minutes to total destruction. He placed the pod in the launch chamber and entered the coordinates for the cargo ship. He hesitated for one last second. Lyra looked at him, smiling through tears. Go, Evan. Save her. He pressed the button. The pod shot out like a beam of light. Through the ship's cracked hull, it flew into space, glowing against the dark storm of Jupiter. He watched it disappear, his heart breaking. Then he turned back. Lyra had collapsed. He ran to her, holding her in his arms. Her pulse was weak, her skin flickering like fading fire. "You did it," she whispered. "My child will live." Evan nodded, his voice cracking. "She'll know who you were." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then I am not forgotten." The ship began to tear apart. Light filling every corner, Evan dragged Lyra toward the escape hatch. But the ceiling fell, blocking the path. Flames spread through the chamber. He screamed, pushing against the debris. But it was no use. She looked up at him one last time. "Thank you, Evan." For answering. Her voice faded as the fire consumed the walls. Evan was thrown backward by the explosion. Tumbling into darkness, he saw flashes. Her face, her tears. The child's pod flying to safety. Then everything went white. Silence followed, cold. Endless silence far above. The small pod continued to glide through space, its soft blue light cutting through the shadows. Inside, the child stirred, tiny fingers twitching. The stars watched in silence, carrying the last hope of two worlds, and deep within that silence, Lyra's final words echoed in Evan's mind. "You are the human who listened, darkness." That was all Evan could see. A deep, endless black pressing from every side. He floated weightless, his body numb, his mind fading in and out of reality. Somewhere in the distance, alarms crackled softly, like dying echoes in a dream. He didn't know how long he'd been drifting. Minutes or hours, maybe days. Then slowly, a soft light appeared, a golden glow cutting through the dark. He blinked, struggling to focus. Through the cracked glass of his helmet, he saw the stars, and beyond them, the cargo ship Horizon Drift, moving across the void like a silent guardian. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. His oxygen was low, his body freezing. Yet his mind held on to one thought. "The child," he whispered weakly. "Please, make it." Then his world went black again. When he opened his eyes, bright lights filled his vision. He was lying on a medical bed surrounded by the humming sound of machinery. A human face appeared above him, the ship's captain. "You're lucky to be alive," the man said. His voice rough but kind. Evan's lips trembled. "The pod, did you find it?" The captain hesitated. "Yes," he said slowly. "We brought it on board. It's not human, Evan." Evan tried to sit up, pain shooting through his body. He turned his head. Through the glass wall he saw it. The small alien child inside a containment pod. Breathing slowly, its skin glowed faintly, a soft silver light pulsing with each heartbeat. Evan smiled weakly, tears forming in his eyes. "She made it," he whispered. The crew gathered around, staring in awe and fear. Some called it a miracle, others a danger, but Evan didn't care. To him, it was life, the proof of everything he had fought for. He reached out his hand, pressing it against the glass. The child's small fingers twitched. It was as if it knew who had saved it. The captain crossed his arms. "We need to report this to Earth Command," he said. "This changes everything." Evan nodded slowly. "Yes, it does," he said. His eyes never leaving the pod. Days passed. News spread like wildfire. A human had saved an alien child. Scientists from Earth sent encrypted messages to the Horizon Drift, demanding details. Everyone wanted to know how, why, and what it meant. For the first time in history, the word hope returned to space talk. But for Evan, it was not about discovery. It was about a promise. Every night he sat beside the pod, talking softly to the child. He told stories about Earth, about the wind, the rain, and the stars that humans used to dream about. Sometimes he thought he could see Lyra in those tiny glowing eyes, as if her soul was still watching, whispering through her child. One night the captain walked in holding a tablet. "Earth wants the creature transferred to the lunar research base," he said. "They say it's for study and safety." Evan frowned. "Study," he repeated softly. "That's what they always say before they destroy what they don't understand." The captain sighed. "You can't stop this, Evan, you know that." Evan turned to the pod. His heart tightening, he remembered Lyra's last words. "Tell her I loved her until the stars dimmed." He couldn't let her child become an experiment. He made his decision. That night, when the ship's systems went into sleep mode, Evan quietly unlocked the containment pod. He wrapped the child in a thermal blanket and carried it to the shuttle bay. The stars shimmered outside, cold and endless. The child made a soft humming sound, its glowing eyes opening for the first time. Evan smiled, whispering, "Don't be afraid, little one. You're safe now." He placed the child in a smaller exploration craft, one he could pilot alone. He rerouted the coordinates to Earth's outer orbit, far from the labs, far from the hands that would tear it apart. As the engines warmed up, he looked out at Jupiter one last time, somewhere out there. "Lyra's spirit watched, proud and free, Lyra," he said softly. "Your child will live where no one can cage her." The shuttle detached from the ship, gliding through the stars like a spark of light. Evan looked at the child beside him. She blinked slowly, tilting her small head. Then in a faint, trembling voice she spoke, her first words. "Mama," said Human Good. Evan froze, his eyes filling with tears. He laughed softly, shaking his head. "She was right," he whispered. But only because of her. Behind them, the horizon drift sent distress calls. Unauthorized launch, human missing, object unidentified. But none of it mattered in that small shuttle. Drifting between the planets, a bond stronger than war or fear had been born. A man and a child, the last of two worlds, carrying a message of kindness across the stars. Evan closed his eyes, letting the hum of the engines fill the silence. He whispered the words that had started it all. "If no one else will listen, then I will." And far across the galaxy, a new signal began to echo. Not a cry this time, but a melody. A soft, radiant song, and the answer to the whisper. A human and an alien together. Proving that sometimes the smallest act of compassion can outshine entire worlds. The stars stretched endlessly across the black sea of space. The small shuttle glided silently, carrying only two souls, one human, one alien child inside. The lights flickered softly, the hum of the engine sounding almost like a lullaby. Evan sat near the control panel, his eyes tired but calm. Beside him, the small child slept peacefully, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dark. Weeks had passed since the explosion, since the moment he lost Lyra and saved her daughter. Every night her last words echoed in his mind. "Tell her I loved her until the stars dimmed." Evan looked at the child and whispered, "She loved you more than life itself." The shuttle's systems beeped softly. Oxygen low, fuel limited. He knew they couldn't fly forever, but he had no regrets.
He had done what no one else dared. He listened, he answered, and he saved a life.
The child stirred and opened her bright blue eyes. She looked at him curiously, tilting her small head. Her voice was soft, unsure. "Evan?" He smiled, surprised that she remembered his name. "Yes, little one," he said gently. "I'm here." She blinked slowly. "Where?" "Mama?" The question hit his heart like a blade. He looked away, staring at the stars beyond the window. "Your mama is with the stars now," he said quietly. The child looked confused, her small fingers pressing against the glass. "Stars?" Evan nodded, his voice trembling. "Yes, she's watching us from there." The child stared for a long time, then closed her eyes. "She sing from stars?" Evan smiled sadly. "Yes, she does. She sings for you." The silence that followed was heavy yet peaceful. The child rested her head against his arm, and Evan realized something. She wasn't afraid anymore. Maybe she understood more than words could explain. Maybe love, no matter the species, spoke its own language. Days turned into nights. The shuttle drifted closer to Earth's outer orbit. Evan sent encrypted messages, hoping someone kind would find them before fuel ran out. He didn't care what the world thought anymore. All he wanted was safety for the child, a chance for her to live freely. But when Earth finally answered, it wasn't the message he hoped for. "Unknown vessel detected," the radio said coldly. "Prepare for interception." Evan's stomach sank. They didn't see life. They saw a threat. He looked at the child, her small hands gripping his sleeve. "It's all right," he said softly. "We'll make them see the truth soon." Bright lights appeared in the distance. Earth patrol ships. Their engines roared like thunder as they surrounded the shuttle. A voice came through the speakers. "This is Earth Command. Identify yourself." Evan pressed the transmitter. "This is Evan Cole," he said. "Civilian engineer? I'm carrying a life form in need of help. She's not a weapon. She's a child." There was silence for a few seconds. Then another voice replied sharply, "You're carrying an alien? You're ordered to surrender the subject immediately." Evan's heart pounded. He could see their weapons charging. He had only seconds to decide. He could surrender, or risk everything again. He looked at the child. Her eyes glowed softly. Reflecting the lights of the ships, she whispered, "Afraid?" Evan shook his head, smiling gently. "No, not anymore." He reached out and pressed the communication switch again. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You've all heard the signal, the whisper, the one that cried for help for 3 years. That voice belonged to her mother, Lyra. She called to us and we ignored her. But I answered," he took a deep breath. "If humanity still has a heart, if we still believe in kindness, then prove it now. Don't aim your weapons at a child who only knows love." For a long moment, the radio stayed silent. Then slowly, one by one, the ships powered down their weapons. A calm voice spoke again, softer this time. "Bring her home, Evan. Bring them both home." Evan exhaled, his body trembling with relief. He looked at the child, smiling. "See," he said quietly. "Your mother's song reached them." The child smiled too. "She sings strong," she said softly. "And you listen?" Evan nodded. "Yes," he whispered. "And now?" So will the world. When they landed on Earth, the world stood still. News spread faster than light. A human who answered an alien's cry for help. People gathered around as the small alien child took her first steps on human soil. No one spoke, no one moved. Then a single human child stepped forward. Holding out a hand, the alien child blinked, then took it. In that moment, the silence of 3 years was broken. From that day, they called it the Song of Two Worlds, because Lyra's final message, her whisper of love, became humanity's first true bridge across the stars. And every night as the stars shone above Earth, a soft signal echoed once again, not a cry but a song that said, "We heard you." Evan would often sit under the night sky, looking up at Jupiter's faint glow. He could almost hear her voice in the wind. He would smile and whisper, "You were right, Lyra. Love never dies." And somewhere, far beyond human reach, the stars shimmered brighter for a moment, as if the universe itself was answering back, with the gentle song of two worlds united by one act of kindness.